Could we have a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Abelman. Here. Commissioner Falk. Here. Commissioner Collar.
Here.
Commissioner Krazan.
Here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Here.
Chair Callahan.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Bauer is out, but we do have a quorum and we can conduct business.
I think I see him walking in.
Oh,
right
is he
now.
walking in right
Yeah.
now? Commissioner Bauer. We are all present and accounted for.
All right, well, since he's late, maybe he could stand up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm already up. Why not? Please stand, face the flag, put your hand over your heart. Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. We need to approve the order of agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to move around or change? Okay. Blue folder items, do we have any?
We do not.
Moving right along. Consent calendar. Are there any changes or additions or comments on the minutes before we do a seriatim?
No.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve F1 and F2 consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, excluded consent calendar items, we have none. Public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on the agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. There's no one in the audience. Do we have any comments? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We have no e-comments. We do have one person on Zoom, but their hand is not raised.
Okay. Does it happen to be Mark Hansen?
It is not.
Okay. All right. Can you ask them if they are interested in speaking now?
Yeah, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand in Zoom.
Okay. Well, moving right on along. We have no ex parte communications, no public hearings. Items continued, we do not have any. Items for discussion prior to action, L1, discussion and possible action of the City Council strategic plan.
Yes. So thank you. Dave, can you light me up and get the PowerPoint started in the meantime? As this group knows, every 6 months, the City Council gets together and they come up with a list of projects that they want city staff to focus on. It's a pretty comprehensive effort. It's actually a public hearing. It's on April 29th. Everybody here is invited, as well as the regular general public. But staff typically takes their direction from City Council on any specific projects. Now, we have our amenities plan. We have our commercial plan. We've got certain priorities where we can kind of look and say what's logically next. But ultimately, it's on City Council to tell us what to do. So what we do as a group is I kind of present to you what we've done in the past to kind of go over some success stories. And then I go over what I would recommend as potential new strategic plan items. Some of those are logical next steps off of projects that were just completed. Some are brand new. I typically look at the amenities plan for those next projects that are slated for us. And then I turn it over to this group to either take away from that list if you strongly disagree with one of my inclusions, then you can also add to it. And then what happens is when we do the strategic plan kind of think tank session with City Council, sometimes they'll actually ask staff, what do we think should be next? And it's always nice to be on the same page with my commissioners. Typically, this commission will nominate someone to write a letter that just kind of goes over the topics that we have. I think last year I actually drafted it and just showed it to whoever was nominated just to make sure another set of eyes were on it, and I captured all of our thoughts. I'm proud to say that we're typically the only commission that actually submits a letter prior to the strategic plan taking place. So it is included in the backup, and City Council does review it days ahead of time, which is always nice. So going into this discussion, I'm just going to go over what we did this past 6 months. Dave, can you? No, I'm. I don't know what number I am.
Nope.
Have you ever seen the commercial where the guy is doing a presentation in front of a big class and he goes to do this PowerPoint and it's like a picture of him doing magic tricks, card tricks? That's it.
yeah.
That's what's gonna happen here. Pictures of Greg doing card tricks.
Fantastic. Yeah, the way he pulls looking for it.
Flags coming out of my sleeve.
Yeah.
Go to the one behind me? Yeah. Okay.
Ah.
Okay, try now, Dave. There we go. Okay, so some of the success stories from this year, and these should jog your memory because a lot of this did appear before you. We got a leasing strategy adopted. It was reviewed by this group. It's been at closed session with City Council. There's some discussion about how we want to make it an official document or an internal policy document, but point is we got it done. We installed new vents for the restaurants on International Boardwalk. Actually, International Boardwalk was a key topic here. Installed the new pavers. There's new signs that are going to be installed before the strat plan item is done, before this next 6 months is. We're probably only a few weeks away from those being installed. We installed new landscaping. We actually did get 2 contracts approved with 2 of our tenants down at International Boardwalk to take advantage of the storefront improvement program. That's a matching fund. We fully renovated all the restaurants, or not all the restaurants, all the restrooms on International Boardwalk and the pier area. We removed a bunch of abandoned vessels from the Basin 3 area and the Harbor Patrol dock area. We're in the process of converting the marina parking lot. This is another good example of something that will be done before the next 6 months is enacted. If you can remember, we definitely explored expanding the Harbor Commission purview. Took my shots at the Planning Commission, came back a little scarred, and ultimately City Council decided not to move forward with that one. We improved the Wi-Fi in the harbor area, so we got free Wi-Fi everywhere. Purchased a shark buoy for the Shark Lab, the Long Beach State Shark Lab program. We just recently finished an application for a $500,000 grant to fund the climate resiliency plan. That's the sea level rise assessment as well as the environmental changes with climate change, the combination of those two. We were awarded a $1.4 million grant to improve the Basin 3 docks. We are weeks away from completing the engineering studies for the new boat launch, but that was one of the targets that we had. We did get City Council approval of the official Seaside Lagoon scope, which is the full renovation. We went over costs, we went over phasing, and we're moving towards entitlements at this point. We created an economic development work group, really with the idea of identifying policies, municipal code regulations, just anything that may impede businesses from locating or choosing Redondo Beach to be their government of choice. And then we did a text amendment that now allows electronic signs in the harbor area. So some of these you'll see it build off of what we just talked about, but my proposed kind of work order here is that, we applied for the grant funding for climate resiliency. Let's get it. Let's work with the Coastal Commission to actually secure that money. The next step for Seaside Lagoon would be to appear before this commission and get the entitlements approved, as well as taking the next step and getting the entitlements approved at Coastal Commission. We are on track for that, but I would like to do that in the next 6 months. Obviously, I think this next one's going to appear in a few strategic plan, but we should just continue to seek more funding for Seaside Lagoon. As you guys know, we're completely funded for phase 1, but not for phases 2, 3, or 4. Those phases can happen in any order. They all have different price tags associated with them, but the point is we need to seek more money. We are making way on the public boat launch. One of the strat plans items this past period was that we get a design firm, we get the RFP, we get them contracted. That's all happening. They're actually doing the studies, almost complete as of today. The next phase of that would be appearing before this commission to get the actual entitlements done. And obviously Coastal Commission as well. Those two projects, both Seaside and the boat launch, are kind of lining up to happen in close proximity to each other. We have implemented a very successful SAVE program. Like in the previous slide, we've actually gotten rid of 11 abandoned boats. Those range between $3,000 and $10,000 to get rid of, and we were just eating that cost historically. We used about $35,000 of grant funding to augment our efforts. This next 6-month period, I want to actually seek upwards of $100,000 to make it more than just Basin 3 and our Harbor Patrol docks, but to open it up to Basins 1 and 2 in Portofino as well, because it's a regional issue, not just a city Basin 3 issue. We are negotiating a partnership for the old Joe's Crab Shack site. I'd like to be able to go on record and say we have somebody under contract. That would make me very happy. We've generally got low vacancy throughout the harbor. It's rebounded quite a bit in terms of a vacancy standpoint from the past 4 or 5 years, but we do still have some what we call opportunity sites. We've got the old Gold's Gym site. We've got the Pad 2, which is undeveloped. We've got the old Fun Factory site, Maison Ritz, which has been the old Maison Ritz, which has been vacant for 8, 9 years. And then the concept in the amenities plan to develop a food hall concept of some kind. I'm sending some staff to conferences, brokerage conferences. We've got consultants and in-house staff that are going to be attending that, shopping all those locations. One of the newest things that came out of closed session was official direction from the council to actually divide the very large Basin 1 leasehold into 5, 6, or 7. We have to figure out just how many individual leaseholds done by use. So it's not just a conglomerate of 6 or 7 uses. You've got, operators who specialize in restaurants running a restaurant, operators that specialize in a marina running a marina. So we're going through that exercise now of how best to divide that up, but we'd like to eventually execute that. Property maintenance, property management kind of concerns. We do hear a lot of complaints from our tenants above International Boardwalk of the leaky roofs. We'd like to explore potential solutions to that. This next one's kind of low-hanging fruit, deploy the dinghy dock in Basin 3. We're really close to doing that. That's probably going to happen in late May or early June after Beach Life. But nonetheless, it's an amenities plan item, and I'd like to include it on this. I'd let you guys know the last strat plan item was to develop the economic development work group. I'd like to take it a step further and actually create a list of items to actually identify as impediments. And the work group consists of internal and external stakeholders. It's got a city council subcommittee. It's got representatives from Waterfront Department, from Community Development, from Public Works, from the city manager's office. So we can look at it holistically from all angles to see what is getting in the way of businesses or developers, for that matter, choosing the city to do their project. And then something on the forefront of all of your mind is the breakwater repair. We do want to get that done in the next 6 months. The schedule actually is to start in May and to end in November. It just lines up perfectly for the next 6 months, but obviously we want to see that to completion. So that's my list that I would propose to you as being included in whatever letter you guys want to propose to City Council. Obviously, you can add to this. As a highlight, I like to look at the amenities plan as a barometer of what maybe we should or shouldn't include. And this is a list of the short-term goals in the amenities plan. Stuff that's crossed out is either been conducted or will be conducted in the next 6 months. You can see we're actually making pretty good headway. the ones that you see here that aren't crossed off either haven't been done or aren't included in my list of proposals. And it's usually because there's money associated with conducting an RFP, getting into an agreement with a consultant, undergrounding utilities, that's pretty costly. We're at a point right now with the budget, you guys heard from our city manager last meeting, you know, we're still overspending. So we're at a point right now where let's execute the stuff that we already have money for. Let's continue to seek grant funding for the stuff that we don't. And then hopefully by the time, you know, 1-2 years goes by, the overspending has stopped. We're now back in the black and we can start tackling some of this other stuff that would require RFPs. But I just wanted to put this on there to show you that, you know, the short-term goals were essentially a list that said, hey, within the next 5 years, and that's from 2022 is when we approved that. So before 2027, you don't necessarily have to have all these projects finished, but we at least want you to have an RFP developed or a contract on site. We're making headway, guys. Like, we really are. It's gonna start really showing itself in construction projects in the near year or so, year or less. But all of the building blocks have been done. I even wanted to show just a couple of the midterm goals, which are like-minded within the next 10 years. And the two underlined are items we're already looking at doing right now in the next 6 months. So, but I included these just to kind of give you guys some ideas of you know, what the amenities plan calls for, what we should be focusing on in the next 10 years. And with that, I kind of want to leave it on my list, but I want to turn it over to this group to have a discussion.
All right, Roger, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. This is great.
Well done.
Yeah, I'm always pleased at how much you guys have gotten done. I'm always pleased at how much the council supports us. You know, us sending that letter and occasionally going to the council meeting has just been so valuable.
But effective for sure.
Yeah. So a couple little comments and tweaks. On the economic development work group section, it's kind of more specifics. One thing I'd recommend is looking at consistent CUPs among peer businesses. I know we're looking at CUPs coming up, but I can remember, I think it was the Slip Bar, or maybe it was another business down there who said the CUPs along International Boardwalk are kind of choppy. They've got different hours of operation, different hours for music. Some have to be open on Mondays. And, you know, if we just sanity check it and
Right.
make it easier for them to stay in business, you know, you talk about business reinvestment. That's probably, you know, low hanging fruit, something we ought to do. I think something this commission promised to do. Another one I had in that section was specifically for Gold's Gym, pursuing that as a West Marine. I would love to get West Marine out of Hermosa and into Redondo and closer to the harbor. I was playing with this today and just kind of eyeballing it and playing with Google Maps, drawing a box around the building. It looks like around 18,000 square feet. The West Marine in Hermosa is about 5,000 square feet. It's minuscule. You know, it is so tiny. I don't know how many people are going to the big West Marines. They have a big clothing and lifestyle section now. You know, it is more than just like ropes and batteries and fuel tanks. So it is something that, you know, any visitor to the pier or area could go in and find, you know, good beach clothing, nautical clothing, beach toys, fishing equipment.
Right.
The biggest one I know of is down in San Diego. It's 27,000 square feet.
Wow.
So they could fill 18,000 square feet. I don't know if it pencils out for them, if they have the, you know, the right traffic and radius around it, but man, I would love to see one there. Another thing I'd potentially add to the list is pursuing a maintenance dredging permit. I know we've talked about that.
We have, yeah.
Maybe it doesn't make this one, but I just want to throw it at you for one in the future.
You know, I that's on our radar, so I
Yeah.
don't mind adding it. I think we're going to pursue that regardless with our counterparts in Public Works.
It's a form you
Yeah.
fill out and someday it comes back and hopefully before we need it. Um, I always look at, there's two things I always look at. I always look at Moonstone, and I always look at the small amenities, you know, the paths, the wayfinding, that kind of thing. And I wish there was more we could do. You know, if the Public Amenities Commission could help, if
Yeah.
Parks and Rec could help, just the little stuff that the city's managed to do on International Boardwalk, the planters and benches, just to see that start to spread, you know, into the rest of the waterfront would be great.
Okay.
I don't know if that fits in here anywhere. It's on, the wayfinding and future paths were kind of on your future plan page.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's any, you know, low fruit, if there's any, you know, warehouse full of benches
Right.
where the International Boardwalk ones came from, you know, as we start to spruce up the rest of the marina, you know, we've got a couple of great new anchor tenants with Riviera Cantina
Yep.
and Cal Surf Club and new paving and stuff, just to start to add a little bit more to make it look a little bit nicer
Right.
would be great. The last one I have is kind of big. I'd like to increase Harbor Patrol's role and responsibilities. This is building on what we've already done with the Harbor Master. It's also kind of building on what you're doing with the Surrendered and Abandoned Vessel Exchange Program. It kind of goes together. You know, things I would suggest, and, you know, I'd want to evaluate this with the Harbor Master, City Attorney, whoever else, the Harbor Patrol team themselves. I'd love to see them inspect marina facilities the same way that the fire department inspects businesses and apartment buildings. You know, they walk around with an iPad now, checking code, and I don't see why you don't do the same thing. You know, you do it in a restaurant, you do it in an apartment building. I don't see why we don't do it in the marina.
Right.
Make sure, you know, there's fire hoses there, the electrical looks good, the walkways are safe, that kind of thing. I'd like to see them increase the number of checks in a boat inspection. Right now, it's kind of like, yep, it's floating. You got enough life preservers. I'd love to see things like, show me that your bilge works, show me that your pumps run, show me that when you run your pumps, gasoline doesn't come out. Show me your engine room blower works. Show me you have a boater's license. I would be careful with this, and I'd have kind of a different amount of judgment for boats that are intended to move and boats that are more like houseboat liveaboards. I see a lot of value in the liveaboards, both as, you know, part of our affordable housing and part of the 24/7 security on the docks. I have all this written down and can send it to you, but so I'd want the Harbor Patrol to use a little bit of judgment there, but, you know, I worry about the other marinas around us that have had fires. I worry about the oil slick we see in the marina constantly. You know, that's coming from just one or two boats. So, you know, things I would do would be like, owner should have a boater's license, engine room blower should work. If you have an enclosed engine room and you get gas in there through a leak or something, when you start your engine, your boat blows up. It happened at the Long Beach gas docks and people were killed. It goes off quick. So you should have blowers that clean that room out, and you should run them before you start your motor, if you have an enclosed engine room with gasoline. The boat should start, it should shift into forward, reverse, and neutral. You know, you should see that the thing goes in and out of gear and the steering works. If you do that when you're tied up, you're also seeing that you've tied up the boat well and it's not going to be banging around getting loose in a storm. That proves that the boat, you know, more or less runs, and if you do go to drive around, you're not just going to hit the boat across the slip from you, which happened to me. If you've got a sailboat, the standing rigging should be sound. You know, your mast shouldn't fall down on the boat next to you in a storm or fall down on you in a storm. Maybe you have a sailboat and you never sail. Hey, that's fine. Your mast should still stay up. But if you do sail, you know, your sailboat rigging should be in decent shape. You know, I heard from the Harbor Patrol a month or two ago, yeah, we stopped a guy who was trying to leave, and if we'd let him leave, it was going to be a rescue in another half hour. So, you know, sailboat should get checked out the same as power boats. There's other elements you can consider of kind of the Coast Guard courtesy inspection. You know, all this is something which turns into preventative instead of a rescue, which are more expensive, harder to use, more dangerous. And I'd like to see these inspections done, pick a number, at a minimum every 5 years. So, every boat in our harbor, and there's some in our harbor that have been there since it was a harbor, every boat gets inspected every, pick a number, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the Harbor Patrol thinks is reasonable. It would be mandatory when a new boat comes in, and then it could be also that there's something the Harbor Patrol does as necessary, or when the Marine Office thinks it's necessary. It feeds into the cleaning up abandoned boats.
Sure.
Gives it a little more teeth. I'd love to see some teeth behind this. Other harbors have it, where if you fail this, you got to fix it or something happens. Right now, you get a note.
Right.
Other harbors are able to do more than that. I don't necessarily want to give our Harbor Patrol, badges and guns and bulletproof vests, but there should be a little bit of teeth behind this. There should also be a carrot where you can say, hey, I know you don't know what to do with this boat. We can take it off your hands. We can donate to Sea Scouts. Someone else can be using it. And this boat you love so much can live happily ever after with someone else instead of just going into a wood chipper or sinking to the bottom. I really have a goal, I think you do too, you did it in the South Basin, of rehoming any unused vessel while it's still usable, and if it's not still usable, let's get it out of there. I really want to see our slips full of active users, spending money in the harbor, buying cheeseburgers, going to the new West Marine, and pushing back on the gang activity. It's creepy being the only one down there.
Yeah.
And there was trouble last summer, and it's starting to happen again this summer. And I don't know how to fix it other than just getting more boater activity down there and pushing back on the problems. So that's a long-winded addition, but.
Well, I think from what I heard, whenever you have something like this as, something you want to explore, when it comes to the strat plan, usually it's something like, hey, evaluate more frequent and more comprehensive boating inspection processes. Because what happens is you end up kind of creating a list like you did, as detailed as that. Like, well, what does that mean? You kind of come up with a list, and then you kind of put it on the fire department and say, all right, what would that, can you do that with your existing staff? If yes, great. If not, most likely not. What do you need to do to augment, right? So then that all kind of gets incorporated into the exploration, and you present that to council, and they can make a decision, right?
No, the Coast Guard Auxiliary does a courtesy inspection, and they would be happy to do it and turn over the results to the Harbor Patrol.
I don't think they have the staff anymore. I've asked for it repeatedly and never gotten one.
At King Harbor Yacht Club?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Let me check into that, because they used to be great at it. You got a little sticker. Yeah. Let me check. Thank you, Roger. Are you finished?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tom?
Sure, just seconding what Roger said. Great job. And I love Roger's visualizing of of filling in the gold gem. The only a couple things I have. I also second the harbor master's growth, and on top of that, also a growth of your department as well. I don't know if we look at that, but you're taking on more and more responsibility. But wouldn't your department need more funding as well?
Potentially, yes. I mean, there is also another big push, and I think the strat plan will show this, of economic development. That's another branch of my department, which could result in one person with their sole rationale to be pursuing economic development citywide, which would then free up one of the 4 waterfront people to specifically just focus on waterfront, right? That expands our bandwidth down at the waterfront as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I know this city council seems pretty key on the business side of things in terms of attracting businesses, retaining businesses, and just being business friendly. So I'm assuming we're going to see it go that direction. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, I have something, a question completely unrelated, but how connected are we to the Chamber of Commerce as far as working and organizing things in the harbor?
We attend all their meetings.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
At one point, we talked about having an effort to rewrite the LCPs, right? Is that effort still going on? Is that part of the?
That's part of the Climate Resiliency Master Plan. So the grant that we applied for would cover that master plan. And then we've asked them and they've agreed to, when we do that master plan, we will then go into the LCP and reorganize as needed to make it a readable document.
Okay. All right. No, I like everything that you've done as far as the economic development group. Is there anybody from the Harbor Commission on that, or in there should there be?
No, but that doesn't mean we can't reach out to you.
Okay.
The work group is going to be the sitting work group. The external stakeholders will invite in and out periodically when we need insight, but absolutely, we can ping you guys. We can even show up and give you a presentation if you want.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I know there was some issues as far as when you're trying to get through the process, there's always ADA issues, right? And those can be real sticking point, at least in experience that I've talked to people and actually had personally with getting through the process, right?
Very much so. When you have an aging infrastructure, or not aging, but just an older infrastructure, older buildings, sometimes it's not as simple as, I'm just going to upgrade the kitchen real quick. That there's all these regulations that come into play that the existing kitchen doesn't satisfy.
Right, and often, for some reason, I realize there's kind of a balance here, but the city kind of pushes in my experience, has pushed the envelope on what is, it's not necessarily just what's required, it's pushing it even further to get there, and that can hold up and even derail certain projects.
And hopefully, the first step of the work group is to identify those impediments. Are we over asking? That could be one of the things. You're right.
Yeah, but that's all I've got, but really a great job. And I think the focus here of looking at the amenities plan and then going off that makes all the sense in the world. We should stay focused, all the wood behind one arrow, as they say, right? You want to get things done, right? So good job.
Finished?
Yes.
Okay, Leslie?
Echo a lot of what's been said, but I'll be explicit. Really appreciate the presentation, Greg, and it's nice to see all that we've done in the last year. And I like how you pulled out the short-term and midterm goals from amenities plan. I had 3 written down, which I think have been mentioned. Yeah, maintenance, dredging, probably good to get that underway sooner.
It's a good
rather.
idea.
There's definitely that low area with all the birds hanging out. Harbor patrol inspections to increase boat and harbor safety and environmental stewardship. And then the third one was hitting on some small areas of the amenities plan, tied to cohesiveness and wayfinding. And I think that was in the short bullet, I think it kind of appeared as, I think you had it as bike path or something, but there's
Over.
waterfront promenade and nodes, phase 1, develop an RFP process for the design and construction of a new waterfront promenade for the initial waterfront promenade phase. So I know we're looking at, just in front of Seaside Lagoon, but it would be really cool if we could tackle like one of the nodes. So.
Okay. Like the wayfinding section that
Yeah, just,
Roger mentioned too. Okay.
just some little things too.
Okay. So the 3 topics that I'm hearing, at least from the first 3, are the maintenance dredging, kind of identifying some wayfinding improvements that we could do, and then exploring more frequent and more comprehensive boat inspections. Just to kind of try to summarize halfway through.
Thank you, Leslie. We'll start at the other end.
I'm good. They've done such a fantastic job, and this is great. This is very helpful for those of us that don't necessarily remember all these things as we sit here with all the lights shining on us. It's nice to see that it's so well structured.
Thank you.
Lisa?
So what he said, one more thing. So was the breakwater or break wall repair lawsuit went away? What happened?
There was no lawsuit. There was concern that the new Trump administration, when they froze and paused all of the federally funded grants, There was a slight delay because the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers didn't know how that affected our already awarded project. Turns out it didn't affect it, but we had to wait about a month or two to really find that out.
I thought there was a lawsuit about some environmental thing that
That was just a
originally,
state, yeah, the state of California.
yeah.
That was a permit, not a lawsuit.
No, yeah. So, okay, sorry. So the U.S. Army had a permit in with the State Water Board, and the State Water Board for our project was requiring certain inspections and certain environmental documents. And while that wasn't going to be a problem for our project, they didn't want to make that something that was going to be required for all of their projects in the future. So they are really fighting against it, and they won. So
So that.
we're
got
advancing,
resolved.
yeah.
Okay, all right. And I appreciate seeing the ideas for later for the dry boat storage and the RFP for the Moonstone Park redevelopment. So hopefully the money will come for that. Thank you.
One day, yeah.
Lee?
All right, well, everybody's pretty much covered everything, so I really have nothing to add.
Yeah, Roger does such a great
Yes.
job. We ought to let him go first all the time, then we don't have to talk. Thank you, Roger. And thank you, Dave, everybody in the waterfront development, because you guys do a great job, and keeping track of this really helps us reflect on what we need to do to move forward. But I have to say, Moonstone Park has been examined over and over. I mean, I'm sure Mark Hansen has a whole drawer full of plans that have been approved and just nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And that money, like I said, that money is sitting there depreciating. So what we had 5-6 years ago is now worth 2/3 of that.
Right.
So every year we wait and don't use it, we're losing money. So
Totally agree.
that's my 2 cents.
Well, I think I summarized the thoughts here already. If you don't mind, I could take a stab at writing the letter, including all the things that I have on here, plus the 3 that I heard from you. And if you want to nominate someone that I can then send that to just as a quality control check, we could do that. Because last year I wrote it as well. And I want to make it as easy as possible for you guys.
Roger, since you have most of the stuff
Yeah,
on the
I'm
list,
happy to help.
Okay.
I nominate Roger.
Yeah, and I recognize I was getting into the weeds, and, you know, I wanted to say where I want to go, and I know it's going
Yeah,
to be
but
just
you
a
know,
sentence or two at the,
If they
that level.
do, decide to put that in the strat plan, we can go back to this meeting and say,
Yeah.
okay, what are we trying to actually accomplish? So it's good that the details
and I
there.
expect the whole council's watching this now, so.
Of
Yeah,
course
right,
they
but a
are,
big
yes.
part of what Roger was talking about is expanding the harbor master's,
Just taking the next step with
taking the
it.
next step, right? Which, yeah, I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, with an eye for safety and stewardship,
Yeah.
not,
And I will look into the auxiliary and find out what's going on. Okay,
Great.
all right. So Roger's going to interface with you and your department, and we should have this covered, yes? Okay,
I'll get that letter to you before Monday because it's on the 29th, the strat plan session.
Great, yeah.
do we have any e-comments or any Zoom that came in on this before we move on?
No e-comments and nothing on Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'll try to be there as well. And I just want to say, if you haven't been to this before, seeing how the city budget works is
it's fascinating.
interesting for people like me and Vicky, I guess. And,
Yeah.
and just having one of us show up makes a big difference.
I think so.
I showed up on Zoom,
Yeah.
Between the letter and then having someone there,
It really
we
does
typically
make a
get what we want.
if I'm in town.
And since we have a new city council person handling the harbor and waterfront, I think he may have some questions for us as well.
And we got to keep them calibrated.
Are we done with our presentation?
I'm all set.
All right.
Thank you.
I did have, although we've done with just a question on the whole thing. We were talking about expanding the purview of, and I may have missed the meeting or where we actually got down as to why the decision was made not to go that direction.
Well, the decision to expand the Harbor Commission purview would have come at the expense of the Planning Commission losing some of their purview area.
Right.
And ultimately, it was decided just not to touch
Not
it.
to touch it,
Right.
just leave it.
that they trusted both commissions to be able to review entitlements within their purview area, their existing purview area.
They came up with some suggestions of how to work together, but then the city council ultimately was the one that said,
Yeah. Well,
keep it simple.
There's thoughts
keep it as
about,
is, right?
you know, having collaborative meetings, having additional meetings, and then at the same time, they're trying to weigh down, well, we don't want to make the process more lengthy to develop, you know, again, trying to be business friendly. So, I mean, they were weighing kind of all aspects there.
also, the other thing I just want to comment on is Roger, you know, thinking and manifesting West Marine in the Gold's Gym site that is,
I've heard it from many people.
Oh, really?
And I think it was even discussed in the past, but they were already set in Hermosa.
okay,
I think we missed an opportunity with them, so.
okay.
Okay, are we ready to move on to L2?
I think so.
All right. Discussion and possible action regarding the Harbor Commission's position on Commissioner Carlson's idea to seek necessary approvals from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to augment the existing artificial reef located near the entrance to King Harbor.
Yeah, I'll start off, but I'm going to hand it over to Roger pretty
Okay.
quickly. So this was an idea from Roger a couple meetings ago, maybe even longer, and as a group, he decided to agendize it. Roger's done a little bit of work on it. He thought he was ready to have the discussion, so I'll let Roger kind of introduce it and kind of take you through it.
Yeah, let's see. I think if you bring up I've never had to present here before. I think if you bring up the PC, if you have the agenda packet and go to the back of that, I don't know if we can transmit this out to the rest of the world anywhere.
Page 25,
Yeah, in the packet, it starts on page
25, yep.
the map.
Well, the
is
ladder's on
25.
22.
22, yeah. So Department of Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife now put in artificial reefs back in the 70s. And they put in an artificial reef in front of most harbors and they tried different material. They tried, you know, auto bodies and red cars and all kinds of different things. And we got one that was made of pier pilings, quarry rock, cement culvert, cement dock floats that they'd gotten from somewhere, various things. And, you know, it was all an experiment to see what worked well. And they planned on continuing this. And from what I understand, never really got funded for any more, perhaps not surprisingly. So we have an artificial reef sitting about a mile out in front of King Harbor, and it's great. You see a lot of people fishing it. It's within range of a kayak fisherman. It's fun to go scuba diving on. It's kind of near the canyon, so the water stays pretty clear some of the time. It's a decent dive site. It's kind of out of the traffic lanes since it is kind of, you know, a little bit directly out from the harbor. Boats going to Catalina are going a little bit south of it. Boats going north to Marina del Rey are going inside of it. So it's in a good spot. And it would be worth adding to it. And if we have any, you know, cement debris or other, you know, suitable inert debris coming from these projects, I wish we'd gotten the pier pilings from the Harbor Patrol docks, but, you know, maybe someday we'll get pier pilings from the South Basin or some of the cement block walls there or from Port Royal or wherever else. I started by sanity checking this with a biologist named Dan Pondella, who works with Occidental College and the Southern California Marine Institute, a consortium of colleges that share a research facility on Catalina Island. And just to see if it makes sense to be, you know, dumping pier pilings in the ocean or if there's some problem with it. This same group, there was recently a new artificial reef put in off Palos Verdes with money from the DDT Superfund restoration. So one of the few new artificial reefs that's happened in the last 50 years happened off the south side of PV a couple years ago. And Dan's group, the Tuna Research Group, studied that. Dan's group has also been doing a biological fish count baseline within King Harbor for like 50 years. It's one of the longest ones in California. So Dan blessed this idea. And so now I'm just kind of looking for other endorsements, and I'd like to get the endorsement of this group. My intention is to talk to Fish and Wildlife and water board and wherever else this leads, not spend any of the city's money, fill out the forms and chase this as far as I can myself. When I hit a roadblock, maybe that's that. I'm not really naive enough to think that Fish and Wildlife is going to welcome me with open arms. But Dan did tell me they are studying the future plans for artificial reefs, and it is kind of held up by money. So, if we have cement pier pilings that, if the new ones come in by barge and the old ones leave by barge and then go down and have to get on some truck and get trucked out and ground up and thrown away, hey, you may as well drop them into the ocean. So my ideal goal would be to come back with a blanket permit from the state to Redondo Beach Public Works. And, here you can give this to Port Royal or whoever and staple this to an RFP. And hopefully it saves money on that RFP. Ideally, that would be something that every city with a harbor could easily get from Fish and Wildlife out of this. They're trying to make new guidelines, and hopefully maybe they're already doing this. I don't know. So all I'm looking for at this point is one more endorsement from this group. I've got a handful of endorsements from various biologists and dive agencies and so forth. So just kind of looking for support from here.
Sounds like he's in exploratory phase, got some concepts in mind, has an end goal in mind, but just wants the Harbor Commission's support to see how far we can get this thing.
Yeah, and I included a handful of pictures showing the existing condition of the reef today.
Is that this one?
Yeah, so there's a little map that Fish and Wildlife made a handbook of all the artificial reefs a long time ago. You can see one section of the reef in this first picture with a couple of piles of quarry rock. This is in like 80 or 90 feet of water, but the storms have still kind of shoved the rocks around and flattened it out. And you can see one pier piling laying on top of the rocks, which just makes that pier piling, a little more interesting, have a little more growth on it. It's not just smothered in the sand. If you scroll down, there's another section of the reef that's just quarry rock. And again, it's kind of scattered, not really piled up, not really any, not much relief to it, not much three-dimensional structure to it. The next section is a pile of old cement culvert and pipe. It's a little more interesting. It's not very pretty, but it's kind of crumbled and rolled around and flattened out a lot. Next section is a section of pier pilings that have really rolled around and flattened out. Here's one section that's a little bit more three-dimensional, has some bigger pieces of concrete. And on this section, on this day, I happen to see a giant sea bass swimming around in this part. So this, the more three-dimensional structure you get, the more it starts to hold life. There were something like 1,700 concrete dock floats dumped. So you can imagine sort of a concrete box, concrete coffin. They've really broken up and flattened out. Here's my friend Jim on one of the better ones that I've found. There's just enough structure there to look underneath and see if there's a lobster there. Most of them are just kind of window frames in the sand if you scroll down to the next two pictures. Stuff like that, or, stuff like the bottom picture where it's almost worthless at this point. But, this site is already an artificial reef. So if we pick this site and dump a little bit more stuff on it, hey, fishermen can get to it, and that'll take pressure off the natural reefs, over on Palos Verdes, and give somewhere close that fishermen and divers can get to and kayak fishermen can get to. The last couple pictures are of one of the best artificial reefs I've been to. This is Izor's Reef down off Huntington, and they have a pile of pier pilings there. They're just like a big pile of pickup sticks. It's like the size of a circus tent, and it's just this huge three-dimensional structure, and it's just covered in fish. And, if we had a lot of pier pilings coming out of this harbor, boy, I would love to see that here. So that's it. Thanks. Thanks for the time. I appreciate you considering this.
I've got perhaps a dumb question. Is it possible to, like, say you had an abandoned sailboat and you cleaned it up and then scuttled it and sunk it there? Is that?
It's probably not worth the trouble. The fiberglass in the sailboat is an epoxy. It's a little bit more toxic and a little less, it's quite inert. I mean, it's in the ocean now, but it's not as inert as cement. And it's also light. storms are going to push it around and it's not going to stay where you put it. And there's also the cost of cleaning it up. You're going to have to strip the electronics and the wires out of it and so forth. There was a ships to reef program, and down in San Diego, they have a small Canadian destroyer called the Yukon, which is really cool. You know, it's a regular dive site. There are boats that go to that all day long and do nothing else, and you know, so it's a nice moneymaker for the local scuba divers and scuba people. But cleaning up a vessel, a small one is going to drift around. Cleaning up a big one is a big investment. So I'm kind of, hey, if that worked out, great. If we could get, you know, a destroyer or something like that here and have more artificial reefs, great. I'm really just trying to pick the low fruit with this.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Anybody have questions for Roger on his proposal? I like it. I like the idea of enhancing what we already have. There's a base there, so they can't say, oh, we're creating something new. We're just refreshing it.
Yeah, and you know, it's
And
not,
it
it's not
keeps-
really pretty when you dive on it, but
Well, and it keeps stuff out of the landfill.
yep.
But if we could pick one spot and dump all the stuff in one, we'd have a three-dimensional circus tent.
Yeah.
I like it.
Is there a maritime law that would cover the dump? I imagine there is, covering the dumping. And if so, who would we, I mean, I guess I'd be happy to look into it, but I'm sure somebody else already has.
There is. I mean, you know, posted in every boat, it says you can dump this close and this close, and you can never dump plastic. And, you know, 3 miles out, you can dump metal, and, you know, 10 miles out, you can flush your toilets. I forget what it is. I don't know who you call if you see a violation of that. You know, if you see someone throw something in the water, yeah, I guess you call it Coast Guard, but
But I imagine like you're not gonna go out there with your boat and dump a couple tons of cement over the side. It's gonna be a relatively large project that gets seen. So I imagine that there's just a lot that has to go into it, and I imagine that there's a cost as well.
yes.
For getting some
Yeah.
sort of permit for dumping into the water.
Yep.
And I do know that there are regulations, like the size of things you're allowed to dump depending upon how far out you are. Within 3 miles, basically, you're not allowed to dump anything. So you need a permit. I think you might also need to get something from the State Lands Commission.
How far out is this?
About a mile. Yeah. I mean, Fish and Wildlife has already done this, and Dan told me they're working on new guidelines. So I don't expect this to be, you know, just one stop and another sticker on my you know, fishing license, but I'm kind of curious to see how this goes.
So Roger, are you looking to us for an endorsement for you to proceed or to endorse a letter? What exactly do you need from us tonight?
On page 3, I have a handful of endorsements, so I'm just looking for, you know, endorsed by Redondo Beach Harbor Commission.
So a vote of support would then include this commission on your list.
Yeah, I would just add a sentence to this list. I'm not looking for a letter. I'm not looking for funding. I'm going to chase this even if, you know, even if you don't vote to endorse it.
I move to endorse Roger's letter.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Point of order, don't we need public comment?
Oh, we do need public comment. Thank you, Lee. Do we have any e-comments or Zooms?
We have no e-comments. And, sorry, bear with me. And we have no comments on Zoom.
All right, thank you, Lee, for saving me. All right, after no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You've got your endorsement.
Thank you, and
There you go.
I'll abstain.
Thank you for doing all the legwork. It's a lot of work, even though I know you enjoy doing it.
Nice pictures,
This will
too.
be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Okay, where am I on the agenda here? Get back to, where's my agenda? Okay, we are at come on.
One, ladies.
Here we go. Direction to staff and Commissioner Carlson, we've done that. So now we are at items from staff. Anything for us?
That would be us, right? Is that the liaison report? Is that where we're at?
That's next.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then, no.
Okay, then we'll go to liaisons report, which, may I ask why it changed from director's report?
Yes, there's been an onus from council to make all of the commission agendas at least similar in nature and how they're all labeled.
Okay,
And not every commission
has a director.
has a director that's doing it. A lot of the times it's just another staff member, so they're
Okay.
just called liaisons.
Okay, all right, liaison.
Okay, just some updates for you guys. The new public boat launch project, we do continue to make progress. The consultant, as the last update was, we were in the process of doing our traffic, our parking, our circulation studies, our demand studies. Those have all been submitted. Our team of internal professionals have reviewed those and provided comments. A lot of those have returned, some of them not quite yet. We have a meeting tomorrow to talk about traffic. We are really close to finalizing these studies, which will then give us essentially the sandbox to design the boat launch. So once we have these studies finalized, we do plan to call a meeting of the subcommittee, which is Commissioner Carlson, Callahan, and Krazan, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we'll walk you through those studies, show you what we're up against. So show you guys where our limitations are, and let the design process commence from there. So, I mean, we're probably weeks, if not a month away. So, I mean, we're really close. The marina parking lot improvement project continues to progress as well. If you notice, we were dividing the project into two phases, the north half of the lot, which serves the new surf club and Seaside Lagoon, and the south half, which is Captain Kidd's, the new cantina, R10. The portion right in front of California Surf Club has been completed. It's been re-slurried, it's been repainted. These new sidewalk, concrete ADA improvements have been conducted. The new path of travel from the buildings all the way up to harbor has been completed. All of those new sidewalks are now within ADA slope requirements with no more than a 2% slope. So anybody with a wheelchair can actually navigate from harbor down to the new restaurant building without any issues. We were supposed to do the northern tip as well, which is most likely served by Seaside Lagoon, but the sewer pump project is still under construction. It's finishing up. So we actually had to divide phase one into its own 1A and 1B. 1B being done, 1A will be done just after Beach Life. The sewer pump project will be out of the way and Beach Life will be out of the way. Beach Life is probably going to be setting up here in the next week or so. So even though we had a week in between potentially the sewer pump project being done and Beach Life, we just thought that was too tight of a window to try to get in and get out before Beach Life needed the space. So we're just going to wait until after Beach Life. Likewise, phase two will happen right after Beach Life, probably at the same time as that northern tip now. That includes demolition of the toll booth and installation of pay stations, one on the south side and two on the north side. All good things. The dinghy dock is incorporated with that. It's taking where California Surf Club was, kind of near the Foss building, that dock right there will become a dinghy dock. Okay, so I led with this in the strat plan item, but the break wall repair is back on track. They've got all the proper permits that they need. We just issued a harbor access permit, which is our own permit for them to actually utilize city-owned property for staging areas and to work in the area. They do plan on mid-April, May 15th will be the starting point for that project. You'll start seeing them mobilize, start setting up prep sites, storage sites. It's going to be near Moonstone Park and in another small area near the yacht club itself. Most of it will be Moonstone Park though. And that is expected to take about 6 months. It's going to be through November of 2025 if everything remains on track. So it's
When does that start?
May 15th. So real soon, real soon. The sea bass grow pens continues to progress. We've got our permit in with the Coastal Commission. Nothing's changed there. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we haven't been denied either. So that's a great thing. And fabrication, off-site fabrication has already started as well. That is scheduled to be done by July, and we're on track to be done by July. Seaside Lagoon, we just recently had a meeting with the LA County Health Department as well as the State Water Board. That was 2 weeks ago. They provided us some comments, so we're making sure that the plans reflect those. We have some follow-up questions for them. But ultimately, that schedule is planning to have entitlements in front of this body in August and hopefully Coastal Commission shortly thereafter, and we're on track for that as well. The nonprofit sailing group that needs to operate at the 2 Portofino slips, that contract has been reviewed by both parties. Both attorneys have signed off on it. It's been agreed to. It's being approved by City Council tomorrow night. So hopefully that will now lend itself to having Julie Cole as the operator of a sailing instruction course on the 2 Portofino slips. And then just a real quick, leasing update. The Pier Plaza office complex has a 10% vacancy rate right now. That's actually really good. When I first started, I think it was more like 30 or 35%. Our leasing agent's done a great job of bringing it up to snuff in terms of reducing that vacancy rate. 10% is a healthy vacancy rate. There's attrition in there. He'll fill one and another one kind of, creates a vacancy. But we've got 4 new office leases kind of slated. 2 are scheduled for tomorrow night, 1 for closed session tomorrow night as well, and 1 that's still in the negotiation process before we get to closed session. So we've got 4 potential tenants that are ready to fill some of that 10% vacancy. And then, of course, we've got the opportunity sites that we talked about in the strat plan, which is Gold's Gym, the Fun Factory, the undeveloped Pad 2, Joe's Crab Shack, and
Maison Ritz.
the future food hall, yeah.
Oh, no, and the Maison Ritz.
Oh, Maison Ritz as well. Yeah, Maison Ritz as well. So we'll work on getting those done. That is pretty much it for my director's report. I'm here to answer any questions. I will just briefly touch on the May Harbor Commission meeting. We do have 1 public hearing that we're slated to come for the CUPs for the businesses that are operating within Basin 3 within the slips. We don't think that's going to be ready until June, and speaking with our planning department who's reviewing it right now. So right now we don't have anything slated for May, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I'll be focused on, it's the budget process through City Council. We'll be going to about 4 or 5 meetings for that. So if you wanted to cancel the meeting for a lack of business, you could. Otherwise, we could reconvene and I could do another director's report if you wanted to. Or if you had another topic in mind, like Rogers Reef situation, I could help support one of those ideas. But as of right now, we don't have an item to discuss per se. But here to answer any questions.
I'd be all in favor of naming the reef, Rogers Reef, that once a
It's already the Redondo, sorry. It's already the Redondo artificial reef.
Yeah.
And typically you get a reef named after you when you hit it with your boat.
Okay, thank you for your report.
Of course.
Does anybody have any questions for our liaison?
I have some questions on the break wall repair. Could you share what you know about how much space their operations are going to require in the water, in the Moonstone Park, and in the parking lots, especially because it's through the highest use of the year?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So the primary kind of construction site with materials and staging and equipment is going to be near Moonstone Park. It will be on Moonstone Park. It'll be that parking lot that fronts not the parking lot that sits in between the fire department and the park, but the one that's even more north of that, the peninsula of
Little
Willoughby.
roundabout.
Yeah, the roundabout.
The west end of Marina Way.
Yes.
The free parking,
Yes.
so there won't be free parking. Okay.
So
Reconstruction.
it will take up a lot of the parking that Lanakila uses.
Correct.
We should talk to King Harbor about using some of their spots for Lanakila.
Already have.
Sweet.
Onakila will not, well, they're going to be impacted, but we've got them covered.
Great. Sorry.
Sorry, so you were saying they're going to take up part of that parking or that whole,
Pretty much that whole west side of that bulb out right there.
oh, just the west side?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they'll be in the park too, that suggest?
Correct. It'll be maybe 10 feet of encroachment, if that.
Oh, okay, right by those trees and everything.
Mhm.
That's also a big hangout where there's like a couple tables, right, in that corner?
Yeah, we'd have to move the tables
We'll
for
move
sure
those so
outside
other
their fence
people
area.
can use those? Okay.
Right.
And then what about in the water? Is it, I imagine a lot less space than the dredging took.
Actually, I really don't know.
Oh, we don't know? Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
We could find out for you. I could probably talk to the project manager with Public Works, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, and then kind of along with that, just are all the stakeholder, obviously there's the community who's going to be impacted but won't know it until
Mhm.
they show up and there's no parking but are the other stakeholders aware? Have they been notified?
Yeah, we start with the Basin One operator, the Majestic Group, and we let them kind of matriculate the information, but then I reached out directly to the yacht club and to Lanakila because I knew they would be affected the most.
And Nahoa?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And then I had a question on the Maison Ritz. Do we know, I mean, I know some of the factors of why things didn't get leased out, but do we know all the factors of why that's been so long in getting leased out? Or is there issues with the space internally that?
It is a restaurant space that is overseen by a master leaseholder, so the city's not essentially obligated to rent it out. We're getting impatient with the master leaseholder. So we're implementing some tactics to try to spur some movement.
Because it's a primo spot.
Yeah, it's one of the disadvantages of
Yeah.
you have that insulatory.
It is, in my opinion, probably the best spot for a view of a restaurant, like a fine dining type place
Yeah.
that we've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty crazy that we don't have a tenant in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? Questions
I
for?
just, a quick question. So there used to be a 4th of July event down at Seaside Lagoon, right?
Mhm.
And that was organized by the Chamber of Commerce, is that?
No, that's a city-sponsored
city.
event.
Okay. It'd be interesting to bring some of that stuff back sometime, I mean, get this whole thing rolling,
4th of July? We're having that
Or
again.
any events, any of
Oh.
those. I'm a big fan of anything that draws crowds down to the harbor, essentially. And I get creative on it. I just was using that as an example.
I'd love to get a haunted house or some kind of temporary, kind of holiday type event. That'd be,
Sure,
pretty
they had
cool.
a skate rink at one point, right, down for,
Yeah.
so any of that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much of it was chamber-driven stuff or how much of it was city-driven stuff, but it'd be good to resurrect that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how you motivate or, put a force
I
on it.
think you just cold call, right? You just cold call operators and say, hey, would you want to locate here?
Well, that kind of goes to kind of, I think we've mentioned it with the amenities plan, is more conversation with Parks and Recreation and Parks Commission and that department with the city, with our commission. And we don't really have that direct overlap of, because some of it might have been put on by them, for example, right?
Yeah, that's a good yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. All right, let's start down at this end again.
I'm good.
Anything for the liaison? Lisa? No? Lee?
A couple of questions. So both related to parking. So on the, when we redo the parking and the restriping in the Redondo Beach Marina area, is that going to work similar to what we have in Veterans Park, where you got a pay station and you have the choice of apps?
Correct.
I have heard that parking enforcement has issues enforcing parking in Veterans Park because it's quite frankly just too hard for them to check everything out because they got too many things to check. So have you talked to
They're
enforcement about that?
on the project team, and I've
Okay.
never heard that.
Okay. Yeah. And.
I will bring it up, though.
Okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, no, so at one point, somebody told me that they'd asked one of the parking enforcement, they said, we only enforce head-in parking now because it's just too hard to check everything else. So, and now as to the dinghy parking, still have concerns about charging for dinghy parking. And one thing, and if I understand correctly, you want to basically use the same parking apps that are used for the parking lot. So how would that work for non-motorized dinghies, which are not required to be registered?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that right now. I don't know.
Okay, so I think you have an issue there. Yeah. Because if you got a boat pulls in, and if he's just got a dinghy with a rowboat, he most likely doesn't have CF numbers. I mean, I see motorboats that have CF numbers too, but that's technically not right. But if you got a rowboat, they don't need CF numbers.
I mean, we could have a person down there to charge them too. I mean,
Yeah, bigger expense.
we've already got people down there.
Okay, and I
Not
have
too
a
worried about it.
question. Are they still gonna have the Friday night car shows? Like, okay,
I know there's been some emails flying around. The city completely supports it.
okay. All right, I have no more questions.
I do, sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Leslie, thanks for all the questions on dredging. Yeah, you're right. We should have talked about that more.
Yeah.
If you find out more, please don't just reply to Leslie. Please throw that in Kurt's harbor master report or something, just to get that.
Just details of the project itself.
Yeah, to let people know it's coming, otherwise, you get chewed down and so do all of us.
Yeah.
And then, is there anything we need to know about Beach Life Festival? All the plans for that going well? Anything different? So far, so good?
We're still in negotiation. If that makes you feel better.
For the one in 2
For the
weeks?
one in May?
Copy that.
Really?
Let it lie.
Wow.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Great. And then last thing, seeing the written up liaisons report, and then also seeing all of the strategic plan stuff, especially all the crossed out items. Man, advertise that.
Yeah.
Throw that on the webpage, throw this into Kurt's report every month. Please distribute this. Don't just bury it in the back of an agenda and throw it into minutes. Please
We're
take
trying to
credit for
celebrate as much as we
everything
can. Any
you're
kind of
doing.
ribbon cutting ceremony, any kind of announcement, we're trying to, because a lot of it's like the groundwork that we're doing right now, So you don't see the nice new building just yet because we're working our way up towards it,
But just
Yeah.
this 2-page liaisons report, just staple that to the back of Kurt's monthly report and send it out, or to, Commissioner Councilperson Castle's newsletter or something. Please distribute this. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Leslie, one more?
Back to the dredging, I'm going to make another pitch for
Dredging or break wall?
break wall,
Break wall.
bike racks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's got to be other, if we don't have any old bike racks that we could throw down there or money to put some in there, like maybe some nearby cities have some in their, back lot.
We just
But
gave,
there are a lot of people, I mean, there's 70, 80 people, right? That Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday are trying to park down there, that there's going to be spots gone. Plus, a lot of people would bike if there were bike racks. But if we could add some on, maybe the two sides of Moonstone Park for summer. And I think it would be also informative for the amenities plan, just to find out what the need, how high could the utilization be and ease parking along Harbor Drive and that lot if we had more bike racks north of Portofino Way.
And also, as those things age, we can take them out and dump them onto Rogers Reef. They're perfect, they're three-dimensional, and we just add new ones. Right?
I've got a couple more too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually, to tack on to what Leslie said, bike racks is something I think is really needed there.
Yeah.
By some part. One of the problems now is that we have people locking up bikes to the railings along the walkways next to where the docks are, which interfere with things like dock carts. And also getting back to the break wall repair, given that I mentioned there's going to be a lot of traffic going across the channel from Moonstone Park over to the break wall, we really do need to make sure we get the word out there on that.
Okay. Anybody else for a last minute? All right, we're to adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you guys next month.
Where's Mark Hansen?